Last week, I gave an AI a job, not a question, a job. Go research this topic, pull the data, build me a comparison document, and have it ready when I get back. Then I closed my laptop and I went to my son's basketball game. When I came back, it was done. A finished work product sitting in my inbox. That's not a chatbot. That's not an assistant that needs handholding. That's an employee that works while you go live your life. If you've ever said, I need to hire someone to handle all this, stick around. What we're about to show you might change that math entirely. I'm Joe Downs. With me is Peter Swain. One of us teaches people how to buy self-storage. The other consults with businesses on AI strategy. Together, we're just a couple of successful idiots. Hey, Peter, let's step inside the hustle lab and show these people how AI can put more horsepower behind their hustle than a British kettle has behind it during a national crisis.
I love it. You know, there's a dam in the north of England where they push water up the hill every day, and then they dam it at the top, and then they release it, and they release it in the ad breaks of soccer games because everybody turns on their kettle at the same time. Seriously, we've had to build infrastructure for the electricity surge from the kettle because we built the British Empire on a good cup of tea, and the sun never sets.
Infrastructure design behind the kettle. That's amazing. The kettle.
That's a whole.
That's a whole other that's an outtake
series
podcast
on its own.
All right, Peter. Today I want to get into something that frankly blew my mind when you first showed it to me, and that's Manus. Now I'm guessing that most people still have yet to hear about Manus at this point. At least that's what I find in my travels. You know, everybody's familiar with Chat and a little more Claude than I thought. Obviously, Gemini, you know, the big names, Grok a little bit. But Manus is probably, Grok and Manus are probably the two that I find people know the least about. But for the most part, as amazing as they are, at the end of the day, all of them, the Chats, the Geminis, the Grok, the really, I hate this, Claude, if you're listening, I don't mean it this way, because, you know, I know you get me. But they really just answer questions, right? Manus, though, it does something completely different. It's a different animal altogether. Walk me through what actually happens when I give Manus a task, because I see it. All right, let me set the stage differently. I don't just ask it, or I can ask it some questions, obviously. But like, for instance, Peter, I'll give it a task to create a PowerPoint presentation for me on a subject. And then when you give it that task, Claude, you know, or Chat, I forget exactly what it does. You can tell it's thinking, but it thinks quickly. It might even say it's thinking.
Well, let's put it an even different way. Manus is running right now, creating 9 research reports on 9 different frameworks for social media generation, because that's something I'm delivering in an hour and a half. So I've got tens of thousands of dollars worth of research happening, and I'm here with you talking about podcasts.
Which is basically my opening, right? As I went to a basketball game. You're sitting here on a podcast while Manus is working for us. Where I was going with this, and it's incredible, and I'm not trying to undermine that. What I wanted you to break down for the listener is when you are in Manus, you actually hit enter or send or whatever. Because you see, ChatGPT says thinking, maybe.
Yeah.
I forget what Gemini does. Claude, it's got its logo and it starts making a little dance or whatever it's doing. You know, it's thinking. Manus, it looks like I'm playing with the Whopper and I just started World War III, right? It's like all of a sudden codes on the screen. What's going on?
So let's just like layer these up, because there's 4 layers of AI and we're kind of on layer 3 at the moment. So the first one is responding, which is the stereotypical ChatGPT use case when you're saying, hey, I want to go to Disneyland. What 5 restaurants should I go to? And it says you should go here, here, and here. And I don't want to undermine or underplay the power of that capability, because if people haven't got that when they get there, like, whoa, this is amazing. And it is. The next part up is reasoning, which is when you see the Claude or the ChatGPT saying thinking, what it's actually doing is trying to understand your request. So, for example, the top 5 restaurants in Disney, if you have it on responding mode, it's going to say, here they are. Here's the top 5. If you have it on reasoning mode, it's probably going to say something like, well, what do you mean by the best? Are you on your own? Are you in a family? Did you mean breakfast? Did you mean lunch? But there's a lot of reasoning that needs to happen to answer that question with effectiveness. Now we're on the next one, which is researching, which is what Manus does. So when you say to Manus, I need a report on this, or let's try and use an example that lots of people might understand. So if you're a realtor, and if you're not a realtor, then you certainly know a realtor will quite often need like a market report, like a house prices up or down. What's the average time on market for a property in 33301 in Florida? What is the breakdown of the demographic of the people that are there? How many people have kids? How many people don't? No, so like a market report on what's happening in that zip code as of right now. That's the perfect use case for Manus. So you're going to say to Manus, I need a comprehensive market report on this zip. As a realtor, I want to know things such as this that I just said. What Manus is going to do is it's going to go, got it, understood. And then it's going to spawn, you're not going to see it. You actually, as Joe said, you kind of see it kind of happening on screen. But what's happening in the guts is it's spawning what's called a virtual machine. So it's creating a mini PC that it can now start saving files on, working with files, etc. So it's got like a file storage, and then it's going to create 1 to n amount of agents, and it's going to be like an orchestra, like a composer and an orchestrator, a conductor with an orchestra, and the conductor is going to say, right, you, agent 1, go and find me the year-on-year statistics of growth in the market. You, agent 2, go and find this. You, agent 3, go and find this. So all these little workers are now out there doing live searches of the internet to find those pieces of data. But and by the way, that's a capability that Claude and ChatGPT both have. They have something called agents, but this is why I'm such a fan of Manus. What Manus then does is when agent number 1, that was going to find the average time on market, gets an answer, it will inform agent 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 of what it's found whilst it's doing it. So you've got this swarm of PhD researchers all going and finding pieces of information and data out and all sharing it with each other. So within about 3 or 4 minutes, Manus goes, here it is. Here's every restaurant in Disney and a sample of their menus and the price point and the allergies that they all have broken out into tables for you to be able to go and research.
So that's why now that makes more sense to me. I'm that person that's using it and is just amazed, and I kind of care. That's why I'm asking these questions, how it's doing, what it's doing. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I don't really care. It's magic and it's working. But so that's why sometimes it'll stop, which frustrates me, and ask you questions and wait for an answer.
Now, okay, so you can solve that, by the way.
Okay.
You can solve that by telling it that you're going to be using this unsupervised. So you can tell it not to ask you questions.
So I have to say I'm using it unsupervised because I have to tell you, I have said, here's the prompt that doesn't work. Don't ask me any more,
right, AI.
There's a podcast, so I'm trying to show like symbols of, or like beep.
Yeah, no.
I'm cursing at it.
Yeah, no.
Stop asking me more questions. Well, I'm going to bed. I want this done. And I can wake up in the morning and it's got another question.
So I think I've told this story here before, but I own a German Shepherd. He weighs 100 pounds, and we had to go and get a professional dog trainer because this is a potentially dangerous dog. Like if he's out of control or we're not able to control him, somebody could get really hurt. So we hired ourselves a trainer. And what became so obvious in the very first training session is that I was expecting my dog to speak human. And the reason the trainer was so good was he knew how to speak dog. So he knew how to make my dog do things in seconds that I hadn't succeeded in months. I use that because one of the things that you don't know, which you're about to know, and for everybody here, AI isn't very good at negatives.
It's not good at negatives.
So when you say, don't ask me questions, it's not very good at understanding the word don't.
So it's like a child.
100%. Now, interestingly, humans aren't very good at either. If you say there are not 3 birds on the branch, if you look at the way in an MRI, if you look at how the brain fires, there are 3 birds on the branch, not. We have to understand the positive version of the statement in order to negate the statement. AI is doing the same. So instead of saying, don't ask me any questions, be much better saying, you are to operate fully unsupervised. If you reach a point where you have a query where you feel a human would be useful, operate on your best guess of what you feel the answer should be and include an addendum in this report of any assumptions that you made during this process.
The longer
you hear the positive version of the negative statement?
I do, and I'm gonna circle back to something you might have said on the first episode and acknowledge something. Because when you first said it, I was like, oh yeah, okay, well, he's probably just speaking in the superlative. But the more I use AI and the better I get, I guess, at prompting, you're right. The longer the prompt, the better, because it's just, in fact, based on what I learned in your mastermind in the last week or two, I'm not letting my projects live in Claude even anymore. I'm creating a central source of truth document, or a Rosetta Stone, or mini Rosetta Stones, with it at the very least that have rules and regulations of what I want it to do when I ask it to do something.
When you myself and when you talk to anyone that's done this for years, we all do exactly the same. It's because recognizing we used to, I've said this quite a few times, but probably not here. You could use a Ferrari to plow a field, and you could race Le Mans with a tractor. It doesn't mean they're the right tool for the job. And when you start understanding how these systems fit together and how and where to use them and where not to use them. So, for example, let's talk about something that people get wrong with Manus. Manus is not a replacement for Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini. Its LLM, its AI thinking capability, its interface, its talk, its conversation is poor because it's not optimized for that. It's optimized for go and find me these things. Okay, I'll go and find you those things and I'll compile them into a report for you. So the workflow for Manus is go and get the thing from Manus and then take the output and use that in something like ChatGPT or Claude. So if you go back to, I'm using the Disney example because when I went to Disney, I did exactly this, of going to Manus and saying, find me every single restaurant in every single Disney park and rank them for me by nutritional quality because I'm trying to stick to my diet whilst I'm away. I know that's going to be near on impossible at Disney, but I'd at least like the safe options per park. And I'd like to see how that's going to correspond with my kids' preferences. And by the way, my wife is allergic to tomato, so I'm going to need options that can support that. So things like heavy stews or curries are not going to work. And it went, got it. But once it produced me that, I think it was like a 68-page document, I saved the document and I went into Claude and said, okay, we're going to Animal Kingdom tomorrow. I want to plan the restaurants. This is the information that you need to help me do that. And Claude went, got it. Thanks very much for all of the information. Now we can chat and talk and it can say, but by the way, that one isn't open until 10:30 and you said you're going for rope drop, so we can take that off the list. So that's where Claude is going to be really, or ChatGPT or anything. But yeah, it's not a conversation. It's not a brainstorm. And both those things are insanely powerful. Exactly as you said, this thing is doing things and delivering results that you would have to pay at least $1,000 a time if you wanted to hire somebody to go and do the thing.
You're so right. It's so interesting listening to you. My journey through all of this has been one of discovery, excitement, frustration. Then I talk to you, and then I realize, yeah, you're trying to race a tractor in Le Mans. Why don't you just take or you're better yet, you're trying to plow a field with a Ferrari. Why don't you just take the Ferrari engine out and put it in the tractor? Right. And I don't know if that example lands, but the bottom line is that's what I've learned very recently. Because when I discovered the power of Manus, there was a period of time where I just skipped Claude and went right to Manus, and I was having Manus do everything because it was like a one-stop shop. I was like, oh, this is the greatest AI of all. Only to realize it has all of its flaws. I'll use the word flaws because of how I was using it. It has no flaws or very few flaws if I was using it the right way.
Yeah, I would say they're not flaws. They're design limitations that are there deliberately.
Fine.
It's like trying to stick a family of 7 in a 2-seater Mazda and going, this car's rubbish. No, it's just the Mazda MX-5 is designed to go 0 to 60 in 4.2. It's not designed to put your zoo of kids in. Yes. The thing that I think that I wish I could find new and better ways to say this sentence, and I love that we're doing the pod because of it, is to me, the number one mistake people make with AI is they think it's a technical skill because they're using a computer to do it. So it's a technical skill. It's a tech thing. It's a geek thing. And what you find out throughout your journey, and I think this is kind of what you were saying, but maybe in a different way, is it's actually a communication skill.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's a
It's
communication art form.
100%
It's an art
communication.
form.
Yeah.
And I'm
And what I've
learning how to
found
use it like that.
is I've become a different communicator with humans as a result.
Me too.
And in some ways worse. Like I've got less emotional capacity for bullshit.
Yes, but your details are better.
But my brief 100%, but my briefing of somebody is now way better than it was, because I'm like, do that, but don't do it. And because I'm so used to, I'm like, oh, if I give this level of detail, if I give detailed prompts, I get the result I want.
Right. So
And I've stopped making assumptions with humans at the same time.
I just gave my kids a prompt the other day. I told them, and when I started saying what I wanted, I said, you know what? Let me tell you what the outcome is. The outcome needs to look like this.
These are the rules, these are the guardrails.
And these are all the tools that you're going to need to achieve that outcome.
Yeah, like I'll give it another good example. I spent 4 hours trying to fix a bug in an agentic system that I was producing the other day. And the bug was that it was an agent, like, so just a grand big prompt for the sake of this conversation. And I'd given it a tool, and the tool was my content library from my mastermind for it to search. And it was returning blank results in this huge big document. And 4 hours later, I realized it's because I told the agent that this tool is available for your use. This tool contains all of these things and da 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 da. What I hadn't told the agent was that you must use the tool. I'd never actually told it that it had to use it. I'd done what I would do with a human. Like if you were to, if you imagine a parallel, you asked me to come and house sit for you for 3 days because you're away with the family. You would tell me the heating switch is here, the HVAC's here, the AC's here, the thing's here. And I as a human would understand that I should probably not flip the electric switch unless there's been a blackout. I don't need you to tell me that you've told me where the AC unit is. If I want to change the temperature, you don't need to say, now, Pete, if you want to change the temperature, this is where it is and this is how it works. You just need to tell me it's there and how it works. I'm like, got it. I understand why I'm going to use it.
Well, I think it comes back to what I just said a second ago, because as you were telling that story, I was thinking, well, yeah, if you and I are having that conversation, I don't need to know, but a child. You might need to tell them, not only does this switch turn the light on, if it gets dark, turn the switch.
I have for many years thought that the best description of AI is a super genius on the spectrum 8-year-old.
Yeah.
Like, it's wicked smart, but some of the things it does, you're like, what? Why did you just do that? Like, how have you come to the conclusion this is a good idea? And then you look back at what you have said. Like, I had one with my son once where I'm like, Sam, he's 8, have you brushed your teeth? Yes. I'm like, okay, breathe on me. And if you're not a parent, you don't understand what I'm talking about. If you are a parent, you understand exactly what I'm talking about. Sam, and I'm like, whoa. I'm like, oh, you haven't brushed your teeth. And he got really upset. He's like, I have. I'm like, you haven't. I have. You haven't. I'm like, okay, show me what you did. And it's 15 seconds long with a dry brush with no toothpaste and no water. I'm like, Sam. And I find myself getting frustrated. I'm like, Sam, that's not how you brush your teeth. And then I realize, have we actually explained this to you properly? Have we walked you through the steps? Or did we give you a 2-minute guide a year ago and then walk away thinking that we had done the job? It's just like, no, Sam, that's not how you do it. You do this, then you do this. And you say, oh, thanks, Dad. And it's such an AI journey, because when AI gives me bad results, I'm like, oh, I've made that mistake again, where I forgot to tell it that it must use the tool.
Yeah. Let me bring this back to Manus for a second. And you're spot on with that. But since you just said tool, it made me wonder. So if I'm listening and this is all still new to me, how do I know when to reach for Manus as the tool, or Claude as the tool, or Chat or Gemini? But in particular, why Manus? Like what is the use case where I go to Manus for this? And by the way, is that first, or do I go somewhere else first?
So the answer is always to think about how the human interaction would work that goes with it. So let's pretend that you're interested in the book Becoming Superhuman by Stephen Kotler. If you have read the book, you might want to talk about it with a friend. So as soon as we say the word talk about, then we're going to need a Claude or a ChatGPT or a Gemini. If we want a conversation, we're going to need one of the standard LLMs. But if you have heard about the book Stephen Kotler becoming superhuman from like 5 or 6 different people, but you don't have time to read it, but you really want to understand the basic concepts of it, then what you might do with a human is tell them to go and write you a report on it and bring it back to you. That's going to be Manus. So the answer to the question, I think that's probably a bad answer, but what I'm trying to get at is what level of interaction do you want inside the process, or are you seeking an output? Are you seeking a process, or are you seeking an output? If you're seeking a process or interaction or a conversation, you're going to want to use Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT, Grok, one of those. If you're seeking an output, a document, a presentation, a pitch deck, a financial sample projection, you're going to want to, if you want to find out the rules and regulations for short-term property rentals in Ohio, you're going to want to use Manus. So Manus is going to give you an output.
So totally, I think the listener understands that. Let me give a use case, because you corrected my use of it recently. And by the way, I'm here to report, oh my goodness, it's so much smoother this way. So as you know, I'll be quick. I'm doing my Storage 100, which is 100 days of self-storage videos, different topics on YouTube. And I'm having Manus create the decks. And I started the project in there and said, all right, here are the chapter, each day. This is the headline. This is what we're going to talk about each day. The topic we're going to deep dive into. And I gave it the headlines and said, create the decks. And I gave it rules. It's been very good, better than I could have produced myself, and certainly in the amount of time. But man, there's frustrating elements to it. And I was telling you this a week or two ago, and you said you're doing it backwards. Claude created the content, the style of the deck, everything, and then output instructions for Manus to do it. And the way you explained it was, think of Claude as your copywriter and Manus as the graphics arts agency, or whatever that comes up with that takes that copy, puts it on the slides, produces the slides for your output. That, not only from a remembering my rules and regulations standpoint, and actually creating a central source of truth document for the slides, but even just having Claude create the speaker notes, the notes on the slide, but also the presenter notes, which was more important, which was holding me up, where I was having the issues. Game changer. And just hold on. I feel like what I did was I put, you say with employees and people, you got to put right butts in the right seats. I feel like I just put the right AI in the right seat for that two-step process.
100%. This is literally what's happening at the moment. I'm just going to read from this. So this is my prompt into Claude. I want to create a Claude project that uses knowledge files for messaging frameworks, such as Donald Miller's story brand, such as Russell Brunson's XYZ, such as Stephen Kotler XYZ. In order to do that, I need to get Manus to produce the files for me. Give me the 7 prompts that I need to put into Manus for Manus to create me those context files. And then I said, shit, before we do that, what frameworks do you recommend? And it came back and went, the Neuroeconomics of Story by Paul Zak, the Story Brand Framework by Donald Miller, Curiosity and Identity by Adam Grant, The Ethics of Vulnerability by Brené Brown, Belief Stacking by Russell Brunson, and I'd also recommend a neuroscience compilation on the RAS and thing, and the hook ladder strategy from Liz, my wife. I'm like, okay, cool. Give me the 7 prompts for that. And before we started, I opened Manus and hit New Agent, copied prompt 1 and hit go. Went to agent number 2, because Manus can run them concurrently. Paste. Agent number 3, paste. Agent number 4, paste. Agent number 5, paste. And I just looked and they're all finished. I'm now going to bring all of those back into Claude to do the work with them that I actually want to do with them.
I don't know what to say. I find myself speechless at the same time. I'm like, why can't you do better?
But again, let's try and make some other use cases for people.
Yeah.
Let's pretend you're a BDM or an SDR for a company or for yourself. You're a small business and you sell to, this is actually something I did yesterday, you sell dumpsters to commercial companies in Colorado. He's like, yeah, we're trying to identify companies because they just did this deal to dispose of concrete for a company, and actually they're getting paid to recycle the concrete. So they're actually now earning twice over. They're getting paid for the lease of the dumpster, and they're getting paid to recycle the concrete on the other side as well. And he's like, so we're trying to find other people where that would apply. I'm like, well, just put it in Manus. Like, that's a Manus use case of, I am doing this deal with this company. It's a great deal for me because I rent dumpsters and we're now getting paid for the recycling of the concrete as well. What other companies, types of companies and specific companies, and look on LinkedIn to see if you can find the actual person I need to contact. And he's like, it can't do that. I'm like, it can, just try it.
Yeah.
We carry on having our conversation. We come back 10 minutes later. There were some very heavy expletives from him as he looked through the 62-page report of, you can do the same kind of deal for this company, this company, this company, this company. The top employers in Colorado for those are this, this, and this. And I have found named executives for this, this, and this. And I don't know how much you would pay a research company to do that job. Or I don't know how many hours you would have to, 60 companies, an hour, 2 hours a day.
Well, Zoom Info would cost you 15 grand a year.
So you're at least saving 15K, but this thing is adding layers of intelligence that...
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting segue. 2 questions, quick answers, and then we got to get to the parlor trick. Speaking of cost, what kind of, how does somebody access this? What does it cost? And can any entrepreneur, business owner, person use Manus like today, or is there a technical skill required here?
You go to manus.im, manus.im. I just had a quick look because my SaaS bill is pretty crazy. You're looking at $60 a month for 12,000 credits with a 300 refresh. You're looking at $60 to get at least one of these type of outputs a day that we're talking about. So you're talking like $2 a day in terms of output.
So it's not a $20 a month ChatGPT or Claude membership or subscription. It's not a $15,000 a year Zoom Info subscription either.
The thing for everyone to think about here is, and you and I have discussed this a few times now, but if you're not seeing an ROI on AI, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. Well, that goes without saying. Yeah. It's too easy to achieve.
These documents that we're referring to, that we've just gone through, are thousands to tens of thousands of dollars. The secret to it for the listener is now to say, well, what would up-level my life, my business, dramatically and substantially? It might be on the personal side, not the professional side. You might want an unbiased report on what the effects of a GLP-1 injection are. Because if you go to a GLP provider, they're going to tell you it's the most amazing thing ever. And if you go to traditional media, they're going to tell you it's probably one of the worst things ever. So you might want a balanced review. Manus is great at things like that. Go and provide me with an unbiased review of the pros and cons of a GLP-1 injection.
Yeah.
So on the health side, but there's so...
I don't even know if I'm just thinking about what we just said. If you're not getting an ROI, I don't even know if that does it justice. I'm thinking if you're not getting 10 to 20 to 100x ROI, you're not using it right.
I would nowadays. I'm just checking. I'm not lying. Yeah, I would lose my iPhone before I lost my AI subscription.
That's a tall statement.
I really would, because apart from anything else, if I had Claude.ai, I could find out how to get sponsored and get a free phone back.
But you have AI on your phone.
Yeah, if I had to choose, I'd choose AI over.
All right,
there's no comparison.
Let me set up a parlay trick so we can close this out. Using Manus, of course, the subject of the day. Here's the situation, Peter. A listener runs a small landscaping business. They want to add a new service, let's say outdoor lighting installation as a new add-on service. They need marketing material, but don't know where to start. They probably need an FAQ for their website, a checklist for customers so they can use to evaluate if they need the service, and let's say a video outline they can record themselves, a video outline so that they can create the video to record themselves. How would Manus knock this out?
So you'd go into Claude and you would voice prompt exactly what you just said, and you would ask it to produce the prompt for you to put into Manus, for Manus to output those assets that you need. And you'd go away for 5 minutes and come back.
So here's what you just said. I'm coming to you for help. Peter, here's my situation. I've got a landscape company. I need help with marketing materials. I probably need an FAQ. I don't even know what else I need. Should I do a video? Should I do that? Should I do this? is this product or service going to work? Are my competitors doing it? These are all the real I was being brief, but these are all the real questions I have if I have that landscaping business and I want to add this service. And what I heard you say was, why you're telling me, tell Claude. Claude will tell you what to do and give you all the proper instructions to then take over to Manus to have it executed, delivered to you within minutes.
100%. The fallacy of my entire business is I teach smart people how to use AI, and when they get to a certain level of it, they realize that they can just ask the AI. But don't tell them.
Well, yeah, don't. Yeah, you're killing us, because I was just about to tell the listeners, if you've got a situation you want us to solve in the show, something you're stuck on, like the landscaping business, email us at idiots@successfulidiots.com, and we'll pick one and solve one live for you. Or, as Peter just ruined it, just go to AI. It'll tell you to.
Yeah. Either way, well, the human touch often not, maybe sometimes, kind of.
I mean, we have to add some sort of element to this, Peter. It can't just be all Claude or Claude. Sorry, Doug. All right, let's land this thing. If this episode clicked for you, please like and subscribe. You know the drill. We've now covered Gemini, Grok, Claude, Manus, and I feel like ChatGPT is present in every episode. It just has to be. It's the original. But that's a hell of an AI toolkit, Peter. And I feel like we're just getting started. So here's what I want you to do. If you don't mind, share this episode with the one person in your life who's drowning in madness. We all know who they are. You might be married to one. Send them this episode. They will definitely thank you later. And don't forget, if you have questions, ideas, or you have some issues with the I don't know, British. Who's your football team?
Spurs, Tottenham.
Tottenham. Sorry, if you have any issues with Tottenham, email us at idiots@successfulidiots.com. We'd love to feature them on the show. Don't send any hate mail about my Philadelphia Eagles. We'll figure that out, folks. All right, we'll see you next week.